Good morning, Nina.
Hello.
Team, we have Nina here today, a nutritionist, a non-diet nutritionist, and we're here to talk about another great question. And this is one that has come up for, we've both come across in different ways, I think.
Yeah.
So the question, I'll read it out from our member, and it's quite a juicy one. It's quite a lengthy one, so I'm just going to read it out word for word, and then we'll bounce into Nina's suggestions on how you can work with this. So our member says, I work around a bunch of females who are often talking about their bodies and dieting. There's one woman in particular who is on keto, who I'm friends with. She knows a little of my history with disordered eating and keto, and that I'm working with a psychologist to let go of dieting, so I can't help but feel triggered. She's not saying anything directly to me about it, but the other ladies often ask questions, and then it turns into conversations about food, how to control it, and it's really triggering and quite boring.
Mm-hmm.
She lost a lot of weight from keto and lockdown, so since we returned to work, everyone's been commenting on her body and telling her how great she looks. I actually thought she was seriously unwell when I saw her again. I don't think it's her body's natural place to be. I came out of lockdown heavier, which I think is partly lockdown and partly recovery. I'm battling with some serious bad body feelings, and I'm scared of slipping back into my old habits and mindset when around these people daily. Told you it was a big one.
Yeah.
I kind of also feel like shouting out the dangers of diets like keto. From my experience, it's a slippery slope to disorder, but as this woman hasn't had any negative food body experiences like I have, maybe it's not so bad for someone like her. She says she's doing it for health, but I wonder if underlying it's about controlling her body size. She feels naughty when she lets herself have something sweet for a special occasion, seems to worry about hidden sugars and things. I let go of all this nonsense. I've worked so hard to get where I am mentally, and I feel like I'm moving backwards when food and bodies are commented on by those around me. I find it hard to bow out of the room or conversation without being emotional or seeming weird. Help.
It's a big one, isn't it?
It's a big one.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot of things to unpack there.
There is, yeah. I feel like there's a lot to it.
What comes up for you first?
Yeah, a few main big points come up for me. So first of all, it's sort of centered around keto, which we can chat a little bit about, but also I feel like this is a really great question just for addressing any sort of diet talk anyway, because if it's not keto, the next thing it's going to be, whatever, it doesn't even matter labeling them all, because there's always diet talk out there. So I think it's a really great question to help apply to any of those sorts of any of those sorts of situations anyway for people. And just starting with keto itself, it was, as a diet, it was actually invented, sort of created to help with epilepsy. It's a medical diet, not intended for weight loss. It was, I think, for children with epilepsy, I'm not too sure, but epilepsy anyway. It's not meant to be, it was never designed as a weight loss diet. It's, a very, very, very hard thing to maintain, as all diets are really. And there's lots of negative health impacts that can be associated with it. So a lot of nutritional deficiencies, things like constipation and other gut issues, mental, so like fatigue, brain fog, low mood.
That makes sense to me because, and actually that might be something to helpful to clarify is what the keto diet is for those who maybe don't know. Because it's brain fog can be related to like not getting enough brain fuel.
Exactly, yeah. So keto essentially is having a very, very, very low carbohydrate and very high fat diet, so that it switches your body's fuel source, what it uses for fuel, from glucose to, and it starts producing or relying on what's called ketones, hence the keto diet. So yeah, it's pretty much, you get massive nutritional deficiencies because you're cutting out a lot of carbohydrate foods, which are essential for us, Glucose is the the main source of fuel for the brain.
Yes.
In fiber, like we need fiber for gut health, heart health, hormones, like so many different things. So it can really start to affect all sorts of aspects of health, and not to mention an increased fixation on food. Like it makes it very hard to go out and socialize because you've got to be really careful about what you're eating, all sorts of things. Yeah,
and I think that's what this member meant by the slippery slope. It can seem a bit, seem harmless at first, and just maybe if this member says that they're doing it for health, it can feel like it's just trying to eat well, eat healthy, but what's underlying it?
To essentially to be able to properly gauge whether you're in this right, if your body's in this right state for keto, you have to weigh on a strip to make sure that your body's producing the right ketones.
Exactly.
So, that's just evidence in itself. If you're doing this diet for weight loss or for health, whatever it is, and you have to weigh on a strip every day to make sure you're doing it right, it just seems crazy.
I know, but so kind of typical of diet culture. These ridiculous things that we do, all in the name of trying to force our bodies to be something, or maybe help, or
exactly
potentially.
It's so easy to get caught up in it.
So that kind of explains what keto is, and then you mentioned some of the negative health repercussions of being on keto. Do you know like how long it takes for those negative effects to be seen, or?
No, it can really depend on the person. A lot of the things like brain fog and the mental sort of ones and the fatigue can be quite immediate because your body is suddenly in shock of having been deprived of glucose, which it's used to, and not being used to having to use this other form of energy. So that can be quite immediate within days. And then the other ones can come on, any time after that, really.
And what do you think if somebody says, like, this is something that I recall some time ago, somebody who was on keto saying that it made them feel just amazing, and they felt that they were, had much more energy, and they felt like they were feeling great. And I mean, I remember thinking that partly potentially this could have been because they were getting lots of accolades and because their body was changing, and they were just feeling good in their body because, their body was smaller, and because that's what society says is the right kind of body. So I just wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point to bring up. I do notice that a lot of the time when people say they eat healthier, they feel better, or after a meal they feel, like I say, some sort of healthy meal, they feel better. Healthy meal feel better than an unhealthy one. And a lot of the time it's the discussion around that is, well, is it your body physically, biologically feeling better, or is it you mentally feeling better because you're telling yourself, I've eaten this good food, I'm doing this good thing for myself, and it's that side. So I think that's a really, really good point to bring up. And there are some people who swear by keto who do say it does make them feel really good, and on a pure physical, biological level. And that's a perfect example of horses for courses. Everyone's different. Different things are going to work for different people, and that way of eating might work well for some people. And maybe they can do it in a way where they don't have to be so vigilant about it with peeing on the strips, and they can go out and have a meal with friends and not worry about what they eat, what's available on the menu, and that side of it. And so maybe having in a looking purely at like macronutrients per se, their body does function better on lower carb rate, higher fat. Just like other people are going to work vice versa. Other people are going to work with a balance. Other people are going to work well with having a big mix all the time. Like, it's just one of those perfect examples that not everything works the same way for everyone.
Yeah, and I think it just made me think about how obviously we know that there is nutritional value in foods, and so certain foods do make your body feel different at different times, and that, and it can be helpful to just sort of recognize that a certain meal that might make you feel great one day might not another day, depending on other factors like how you've moved and what you've eaten before and stuff.
It's where you're at in your menstrual cycle, how good your sleep has been, digestion, so much.
This is why it always comes back to an intuitive approach, intuitive eating, rather than following what the keto meal plan or whatever the meal plan sort of tells you exactly.
Your inner knowing so much stronger, such better guidance than anyone or anything out there. So any other words of advice or thoughts that come up? There would be some key ones. I know it can be so hard when we are surrounded by co-workers, friends, family, whoever it may be, who's talking about the diet that they're currently on. But I think just remembering that essentially everyone's own eating is their own thing, it's their own business. And I know some people make it your business when they talk about it in front of you, but you've just got to come back to remembering in not getting swept up in it all, why haven't diets worked for you in the past? Coming back to that truth, and why does this new way of this sort of non-diet, more intuitive approach, why does that work for you? And remembering that, and just sort of knowing that people often have to go through their own journey at their own time. Everybody's at a different stage, and having that first-hand experience does make it a lot more powerful, and they'll discover it on their own. And you can just be the if you want to support them during that,
Yeah.
I think can be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Another thing would be if this client hasn't yet had the conversation about maybe putting up some boundaries around talk around body and diet. And I know that can be tricky and it can take a while to work up to, but there is a really great blog post by a dietitian, I think, over in the States, Alyssa Rumsey, and I can link that. It's about responding to diet talk.
Right.
And she's got lots of different examples, you know, at restaurants, on a date, with co-workers, with family, during the holidays, about the sorts of things you can say. And yes, it might take you a long time to work up the courage to say that, and that's fine, but just having some sort of boundaries around it. And the other thing is, because realistically, because of us being surrounded by diet culture, we can't always avoid these sorts of situations. So it's sort of mentally and emotionally preparing yourself as well when you know that you're going to be in a situation like that.
That's really helpful.
And I know it's such a simple little thing, and this especially works for me because I'm a visual person, so hopefully it works for, you know, anybody who's quite visual. But just two sort of things I do, just picturing a big bubble around me, and, you know, no one can get into that bubble. It's like your little safe bubble when there's this conversation. And also, if someone's, you know, talking to you about this stuff, you can sort of picture of you taking it from them and then just putting it next to you, or putting it next to you, and that floats down a stream, and it doesn't come into you. You don't take it on for yourself, and I find that can be really, really helpful as well. I know I've got my little notes here. The other thing I would say is it's just completely up to you as well if you do want to potentially educate them about alternatives. And that's, again, it's totally, you might not want to, but you might want to. They might not want to hear it, but they might be really receptive to hearing alternate perspectives. And the client said that this person on the keto diet doesn't have any negative hang-ups around food and body, but then the other things I said after that made me think, sounds like they do. And so maybe they really would benefit just, you know, being introduced to this more HAES, non-diet, intuitive, sort of gentle, self-compassionate approach.
It's a hard one to bring up with in those kind of environments.
It is.
I wonder how. I mean, this member is talking about this woman as a friend of hers, so maybe a private conversation with her or something instead of, you know, rather than bringing it up in front of the others. Because I know how she feels when she's saying, you know, like when she's almost sounding like she feels like the outsider. You know, they're all talking about that, and like I feel in the fitness industry sometimes that I've got two heads and people don't really get that I don't sell weight loss and that. So I can understand that, and sometimes you've got to pick your battles a little bit and be in that frame of mind where you feel ready to bring that up.
That's exactly it. You have to put yourself first and make sure you've got the energy and the headspace and all of that to do it and want to do it. And the person has to be receptive, because sometimes they're not ready to hear it, and that's not fair on them either. You trying to tell them something that they're not ready to hear. I think it's I forget who it is, Evelyn Tribbley maybe, who talks about, I mean, quite a few people talk about it, but like diet as religion. Trying to convert somebody. Yes, that's it. Trying to he talks about trying to convert somebody to a different religion, and it is very much like that in a way. So both of you have to be ready to be open to having an open discussion. But on that point of what you're saying with feeling isolated as well, I very much experience that as well with being a nutritionist, because often it's the whole weight loss assumption and all that. But with that, I think very helpful to be surrounded by like-minded people, like beautiful Haven communities, a perfect example. And just being surrounded by people who do share your views, and you know, whether that's in person, people you follow on social media, having some positive sort of role models in that sphere can really, really help as well.
I would definitely agree with that. I mean, that's sort of like one of the foundations of Haven. You know, that's what I wanted to create here, because that was so powerful for me, having the community where you can comfortably, openly share and not sort of be triggered by that kind of stuff. But I also found the communities, widespread communities online, and reaching out to getting involved in the groups like Christy Harrison's groups online. Just there's a lot of resources out there.
There's so much. It's really lovely. And there is actually Jules Duffy Dillon, who's got the Love Food podcast. She's actually got a really good podcast episode, really similar to the question that the client wrote in. So I can pop that down there below
That would
as
be
well,
great.
because she speaks to, I forget who it is who she has the discussion with, but it's a really lovely discussion.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great podcast, and it's really helpful to hear it from, like, you know, we're talking about this now, but it's really lovely to hear it from another sort of professional with a different kind of perspective or way of sharing it. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of, like, you know, similarities in the things that we spoke about. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think, did you have anything else?
No, that's everything.
Cool.
I hope it's been helpful.
Oh, it's. I think it's really helpful. It's helpful for me, and I hope that helps our member. We will share the links for those resources, and please know that your questions are always really welcome, and you can share them with us anonymously on this little form that I'll share below, and also you can just chat with us in studio. Nina's here on Thursdays.
Always.
Nina also does the free 15-minute consult if you just want to kind of suss out what Nina's approach is about, and it's really lovely. So pop in or give her a call, and you know, you can chat to me as well.
Awesome.
Have a good day, team.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Did some jazz hands at the end.
I love it. Thank you all.
Oh, thank you.